Typically, I'm not going to do reviews of cheap knives. I don't really even do reviews that often of knives. Usually it's other stuff that I buy that I really want to talk about because I like it so much. But every now and then there will be a knife review, and this is one of those cheap knives that I actually like a whole lot, so I thought I'd do a review of it because I really like this knife. I'm going to start off by saying this is a off-brand knife. It's made by budk, which is that cheap website that sells knives for like $3 for crazy stuff that looks pointless and is pointless pretty much. But this knife here is from budk.com. I got it at a flea market that's near me, but it said budk stamped onto the blade on this side. You might be able to tell where it's at there, but it's got paint over it and it's been wore down because I sanded it. But this is a Tanto Warrior knife or something is what it's called. It comes with this cheap leather sheath. Nothing special, but it works pretty good. I've had this knife for over a year now and no complaints. But that's the sheath. Nothing special, so we're going to get that out of the way. The sheath does have a belt clip though, but it's one of those cheap ones that just kind of cut into it. Anyway, this knife is almost 1/4 of an inch thick. As you can see, my hands is dirty because I just got done testing the blade, which is what you'll see at the end of the video. And also, I've modified the tip of this to drop down like a little drop point to a tanto. And then I put this in there if I wanted to use it as a spear, so it'd kind of stick in whatever I used it for. Like if I use it to spear fish with or something, you know, it'd stick onto the fish. But I've used this knife for I've used it at least 100 times for splitting wood. The blade's never bent. It may look bent on here because I'm using a fisheye lens, but it's not bent, as you can tell there. If I do it that way, line it up with the crack in the table. Also, I modified a finger choil in it there. I'm wanting to go ahead and get what I've modified out of the way because that's not how it comes. So then if I choke up on the blade to do some fine work, I usually hold it like this and do that. And you can also do that thing where you scrape off things for the fire. I don't even know what it's called, but I do it. The blade was black, and it was kind of a saber grind blade, but I made it into a full flat grind, and then I Kryloned it, and the Krylon's actually held up pretty well. Because at the end you'll see I split some cedar, and this is all it really done, which I'm pretty impressed with. It's basically Krylon is the same coating on the Rat 1, which surprises me because I think the Rat 1's held up pretty good. But I do believe on the Rat 1 they've upped the quality of the coating on it. Feels to me like it has a clear coat on it now. Everybody said before it's just straight up paint, but this one feels like it has a clear coat on it, and I've never had any complaints about it wearing off other than like through the tip, which is where you put it into stuff to open it and stuff like that. But not too bad. But get that out of the way. So this knife is only about 3/4 to an inch thick in this direction, and the blade is around 11 inches long. Of course, the cutting edge isn't now. The cutting edge on it was around 11 inches long, but then I ground out this finger choil, which is just something that I was willing to do to give up that blade length because I thought it was worth it. It is a full tang knife. The tang extends all the way through the handle. I would take it off and show you, but that brings me to another point. I got a washer in there. This end piece just screws off, but it is completely full tang. No stick tang or anything like that. It's full tang. But the handle wore loose on the blade after chopping with it a while, and when I would shake it like this before, you could hear it kind of clinging around. The guard and the handle would cling. And I put a few drops of super glue down there, and it hasn't came loose since, and it's held it through batoning and whacking, and it hasn't came loose, so that's held it on there pretty good. Or else I would take it off and show you. But this knife isn't going to be so good for hacking because it's actually pretty lightweight. I mean, it's a heavy knife, but you know, it doesn't have any belly in it, so it's not thick. It's just not going to weigh enough to hack down stuff with. It will throw a spark off a fire still. As you can see, it's got some jimping there. I've done that myself for whenever I choke up on it because this is pretty slick up here on the top. Yeah, there's not really a whole lot to say about this knife. It doesn't even tell you what type of steel it is. It's just some sort of stainless steel. I'm guessing it's 440 with a cheap heat treat on it. I don't guess the heat treat can be that bad because it'll actually hold the edge pretty good. You just can't get a real good edge on it. You can get it shaven sharp, and it'll lose the shaven sharpness after you've batoned through a few logs, but it'll still slice paper. I mean, I took this on a camping trip during the winter time, so I know this still will hold up to the cold weather. And we probably split 30 good sized logs, probably about that big around. So I mean, takes up. It was this big onto the blade, and we split that, and I brought it back to the house when I was done. There was no chips in the blade. This blade actually does not chip that easily. I mean, there might be little dings, but I don't consider them chips. But right now it's perfect. There, right there, looks like it's chips, but it's just dirt on the blade. I could probably rub that off. But yeah, it didn't chip or anything. But when I brought it back to the house, I always do a slice test to see how well the edges held up, and it would still slice paper. So it's not that bad. Pretty good for the money you pay for it. Of course, batoning wood doesn't put a whole lot of stress on the edge. Just the initial start pretty much dulls the edge. Then after that, it doesn't really dull it. I didn't do a lot of hacking with this because I had a folding saw that I brought with me. Typically, I'll bring this, then an Escobar on my BK11, and a folding saw. And that's really about all I need. Every now and then I bring a pocket knife, but I only use that for food work and stuff like that. But now, this is a $10 to $15 knife, depending on where you got it. If you order from the website, I believe it's closer to 10, but I believe I got it for 15 because I bought it from the flea market place. And I bought this before I was into hiring knives, and I just bought it because it looked cool. But then I took it camping and I realized that it had a lot of potential for a knife of $15. So I believe I would trust this knife to go with me on a week camping trip, this knife alone, because I've split so much wood with it, nothing's ever happened to it, stays strong, it has a perfect amount of flex in it. You know, I can't take it and really bend it with my hand, but if it gets into a log and it flexes, it'll go back straight. So I don't really have to worry about it getting in the log and breaking or bending and staying bent. And like I said, I have this so I can do some more up close work with it if I had to make a trap or anything. And it could hack down some small trees, but I wouldn't expect anything just crazy out of this for it to hack down, especially since there's no belly there. It's a tanto tip. You could do food prep with this knife. Of course, when it hits the table, the whole blade, as you can tell through there, isn't going to touch the table, and then you can get about from the center portion of the blade down, and you could rock it to cut food prep, or to do food prep. But you're not going to get that belly on the end of it either, so you're not going to have that ability of just using the tip of the knife to do the food work. But for wood use, splitting wood, hacking down little limbs, getting a path cleared out, mainly fire prep, I guess, would be the use of this knife. Although it's made to look like a self-defense knife, I would never use this as a self-defense knife because it's just, I don't know, the guard on it's not big. It's got a small guard on it. The handle is not, I mean, the handle is grippy. It almost looks like it's Kraton or something, but it's just a type of rubbery plastic. It's grippy enough for any type of wood use, but in self-defense situation it's not. You do get reach with it if you was going to use it for self-defense. The tanto tip, I don't know, I wouldn't even want a tanto in self-defense. I'd rather have a lot of belly for slicing capabilities. But the tanto is good for stabbing stuff, and also using it kind of as a drill. If you're out in the woods, you can stab it onto your wood and you can drill it back and forth. That's one reason I dropped that off a little bit, because it does drill holes better that way. And that's good for trap making and making snares and stuff like that. For the money though, it's a good knife. If you find one of these, I would go ahead and buy it. I mean, it's $10, $15. Even if you only like higher end knives, I believe you'll be somewhat impressed with this for the money. I mean, this ain't going to compare to an Essie Hungless or anything, of course, but it will compare to, I believe, knives this size in $50, $60 range. It'll compare to them. Just in the toughness of this, I would rate it as tough as one of the, like, the BK9 or something, the Becker BK9. I believe this could do everything the BK9 could do, except it may not split wood as well just because the blade's thinner, and it won't do food prep as well. But as far as strength and rigidity, this is going to be just as strong because it is a full tang knife. It's about the same thickness as far as I know, and never had any problems out of it. So, you know, it's comparable to some upper end knives. Of course, the steel isn't going to be as good, so it won't hold an edge as good as a BK9 probably would. And it also won't get that crazy sharpness that they can get because this isn't a carbon steel. But on the bright side of that, it won't rust on you, and you're only paying $10 or $15 for it. So if anything was to happen to it, you know, it wouldn't be a big disappointment. But from what I found out, nothing's going to ever happen to this. It's going to be a knife that's going to last for you for a while. The piece of wood that you're getting ready to see me split after this little clip of the video is going to be, it was cedar wood, and it was about this thick. It was the same piece of wood that I used in an axe video, although I don't know if the video will be up before I put this one up or not. It did break the axe. It actually broke the bottom portion of the axe blade. Just click over there on the side or whatever to watch the axe video. It'll probably be up over there. And toward the end of it, it does break the axe. So the axe failed the test. So then after I split that piece that was that big, split it in half with the axe using a wedge, and then I took the portions that was, this size, and I split both of them with this. And it is cedar, so it's a hard wood. And it took me maybe 5-6 hits with a baton to get through it. And the wood was 3.5 feet tall. So this is going about 6 inches at a time every time I hit it through the wood, which is a pretty good pace. It does a lot better ever since I made it full flat grind. Before, it kind of have a tendency to jam up in the wood a little bit. But I'm pretty impressed with this knife, and I believe it'll go with me backpacking whenever I go again. Of course, this sheath isn't great, but it's actually pretty good quality for $10 or $15. You wouldn't expect something like this. You're not going to get Kydex. The companies that make this probably don't even know what Kydex is. I mean, this is floppy, and it protects the knife from cutting you, though. Maybe not stabbing you. It could stab through that pretty easily. But the point of the knife does rest right above this, so it makes it a little bit less likely. But overall, good value for the money. Especially for a cheap knife. It's performed better than I thought it would for the money. I would rather have this than my cold steel machete to go out in the woods with me, because this has the ability of splitting wood for the same cost as the cold steel machete. But I was just comparing that to something in the price range. I don't know anything in the price range that can do what this has done for the money that's going to actually hold up decent. That is also full tang. Most cheap knives, it's got a little stick tang in it, or a tang that goes under there then stops. This one doesn't, so keep that in mind. But you're not going to be able to dress an animal with this. Maybe hack some bones off of it or something. But good knife. If you run by one of these, it'll be black. It'll have a saber grind, and it won't have that modified tanto thing that I done to it. And yeah, good deal. But it comes really dull, and you're gonna have to reprofile that edge because it's very shallow. I mean, when you buy it, the edges like that, and then I've reprofiled mine to be down like that. Makes a huge difference. So here's the cutting clip of it batoning wood and whatever else I do in the video. Okay, I'm not for sure if I'll edit this into the video or into the next video, but the axe broke on splitting this piece of cedar. Of course, it was bigger at the time, but we're just going to use a blade that's about a quarter of an inch thick. I made it into a full flat grind that wasn't before, and I painted it, which the paint is just going to wear off, of course, as you'll know, but we're going to see if we can split it with it. This is my preferred way of doing stuff. So as you can tell, that's a lot easier than using an axe, and I believe it always will be just using a bigger knife. We'll do a little better. So I still think a knife is the way to go over the axe. It seems to me like it's easier, takes less effort. You can tell it's hit it maybe 5 times and it went right through it. Of course, the axe is going to be the chopping. I can't chop through this like I did with the axe. It just don't have as much downward weight on it. You can see there, I could have done all that with one hit with the axe. But as far as splitting the wood goes, if y'all wonder what type of paint this is, it's just Krylon paint that I've sprayed on there, but it actually holds up just as good as any other paint wood that comes on a knife in the manufacturer. You can make feather sticks and stuff with it, as you can tell. And the knife blade itself is still straight from splitting that cedar.